Okay,
we
sorry,
found
you
an
got it.
echo.
You got it. Sorry.
What would we do without our technical
I should
assistant?
introduce our technical assistants, and you are Liz's daughter, Jenny
McHenry.
McHenry. Part of our dynamic sister trio here. Anne and Jean. I do know that, but you know. It's early.
We're checking, we've done this, we know.
We forgot about the, yeah.
Who wants to chime in, apparently? All right, so Liz, tell us a little bit about the challenge and what you expect of us.
Well, anyway, I'm gonna try and ad lib and read at the same time, but anyway, Debbie Bowles, who is the owner of Maple Island Quilts, generously offered to give us 20 patterns for free. And we thought, well, wouldn't it be fun to get them all the same pattern and make it a challenge that we can enter in the show? So we've got 5 of these, or 20 of these BQ5s. And this is an example of one of her quilts. It is not the BQ5, but we don't have a BQ5 because she gave them all away. But anyway, this gives an example. It's very similar and it shows the block size. I think this is the 9-inch or the smaller block size, because BQ5 actually features an 8.5-inch block with a 12.5-inch focus square. So the idea being there's then sashing around each square that is done accent splash or pinwheel. So do you want to hold up the Halloween one? Because that is a smaller BQ5. Now, this is not BQ5, it's BQ5 Encore, but it gives you the idea. So it's tiny BQ5 basically. But there's your square. Oh, and Louise has extra patterns to sell too. So we've got the 20 that were given us. We've got a special basket up front with, basket up, yes, with. You can fill out your name and phone and other things and put it in the basket, and we will draw for this, the 20 free patterns at the end of the meeting. Zoomers, please send me your information if you haven't already. It went out in the Thursday Thimble, but if you weren't going to be here, but we're going to be Zooming, to email ed@mnquilt.org. And that would have, and then I get you entered in. So everyone that sent in their information yesterday is already in the basket. So you don't have to send it in again. But if you're just hearing about this for the first time on Zoom, please send that to ed@mnquilt.org if you would like to be entered into the drawing, which will happen at the very end of the meeting. So that's the drawing for the 20 free patterns. We also have, well, BQ5 is just one of a series. So she did a whole series called BQ Nation. And we have all of those patterns available for sale at the discounted price of $8 today, plus tax, unfortunately. We would encourage you to pay cash though, because then we don't have to pay for the square and then we'll get a little bit better commission. So, but the idea of the challenge is, let me see, remind me if I forget anything. We would like you to try and get these BQ5s or BQ5 Encores or another BQ if you don't like BQ5. But we would like you to get them done in time to enter into the quilt show next year in 2024. And we're going to set up a separate category similar to the mystery quilt. So it won't count towards the 2 entries. It'll be set as a separate. And then we'll exhibit them all together. And hopefully we'll be able to come up with a viewer's choice ribbon for that. But we just thought it would be fun to see. We chose BQ5 because it seemed like it had the most opportunity to showcase and have fun with. And I just think it would be perfect for a large scale print. Now, obviously this is a small size, but you know, this, and she showcasing case flowers, but you could get one of his other large scale prints and do it with the 12.5-inch block. And here she's put a few little extras on the back.
Love it.
Really cute.
It is.
It's a fun pattern and it's very simple because especially if you make the 18.5-inch size, you'll come up with a bit much bigger quilt. And now Laura's got a quilt from, it's
One more,
kinda a
one more.
long way.
Oh, sorry. They were resting.
This is BQ3. And we have the patterns for that too available for sale if you want to buy one of those patterns, but very similar idea. It's just the accent settings that are different in this one.
So this actually, I'm not promoting, but I'm making this for a friend who's having her first grandchild after 20 years of being a mother-in-law. And, you know, keep praying for those happy accidents. And finally, so this is a kit at Twin Cities Quilting, and I took it up to the lake and I made the top in a day. And I didn't make it myself, work real hard on it. So you're really just making strip set with this part of the frame. You're cutting little corner squares right here, and then you cut out the panel or your big print or whatever it is you like. And you can see how it just plays. So in this block, we put it on the side and the bottom. This block, we put it on the side and the top. This block, the side and the bottom. I mean, it's just, until you do it, you go, oh, for heaven's sakes, this is a no-brainer. I think of all those panels that I have, and I haven't done a thing with them yet. And here's the way that you can do it. And when Faye uses, you know, depending on the fabric collection that comes in, it's very easy to adjust those strip set to the size of the block that you're cutting. So you're not limited to, oh, if I buy the pattern that does a 12-inch block, that's what I have to make. Not really. Once you read the pattern, you'll see how, well, I have a 10-inch block. It will work. It's fun, and you'll love it when it comes together.
Thanks, Laura. And we've got a couple of other of her quilts to show. This it's gonna say on the back what it is, but similar idea. This is, I think, the 18-inch block. So you can see how well it, easily you can make a big quilt with it if you size it up with the 18-inch block.
Show of hands, are you excited?
Anybody
Yeah.
interested? I can't wait. I've got lots of leftover Anna Marie Horner fabric I'm planning to use. But just to show you the patterns, so you get the idea of what we're talking about. It's a setting with the, I guess I should be in front of the owl. So you
No,
don't have
it's,
to
I'm trying to follow you.
So you have a highlight square, and then as Laura was saying, the sashing, and this one has some offset half rectangle squares. Or half square rectangles or whatever. Yes, questions?
So the challenge would be for any of the patterns or just the BQ5?
We prefer it to be BQ5, we really would, or BQ5 Encore, but if you turn it, we'll allow you to enter any BQ quilt,
BQ Nation.
BQ Nation quilt. So she's got a lot of other patterns besides that. If you go on her website, there's a whole bunch that say BQ Nation, and those are the ones we have for sale. Louise has them over here, and like I said, they're $8. And that's a significant discount. She sells them on her website for $10 plus $3.50 shipping and handling. But I think most of the quilt stores are selling them for 12 to 13 now. So it's a good deal. And of course, she wanted it to be a bit of a fundraiser for MQ. So we will take a little commission off the top, which is why I was emphasizing that
Cash.
with cash. We don't have to pay square then. Which amazingly is like 50 cents a transaction. So I think that's it. Did I miss anything?
I don't think so.
But yeah, if you want to fill out your name, the labels up here and put them in the basket, we will do the drawing at the very end of the meeting after door prizes or before door prizes, but at the very end. So any other questions? Questions from Zoomers? Okay. Just have to remember who I have up next.
Okay, it's Win.
It's Win.
Yes.
Oh, nope.
So our next presenter is our illustrious president, Lynn Martin, and she's going to acquaint you with the new look of our website. I don't know how many of you have been out there a couple times going, gee, this looks different. If the MQ website is a place you go to all the time, maybe when you go to your browser, we used to have the red, white, and blue logo, and all of a sudden that's instantly changed to our turquoise and green. And so that comes up and you can quickly go to that, and things have moved around a little bit. Not everything is there, but it's coming. You know, it's one of those things, we're in transition. Remember in the old days how it used to be, you'd see that yellow tape or something under construction? Well, it's gradually all going to be back there, but we want to give you a little tour of where it is, how to navigate, and an excellent search window.
Good morning, everyone, and good morning to everyone on Zoom. I need to be at my computer in order to do this demo, so for those in the room, I'm gonna sit down and you're just gonna have to listen in, and that will help me do directions for the people who are watching on Zoom as well. So this is the new website, and it is minnesotaquilters.org. That part hasn't changed at all. And when you open it up, hold on a second, there's just something I need to get out of my way. It's always something. So when you open it up, you're at minquilt.org. This is the first page, so welcome to Minnesota. The number one instruction I want to give you is to think about scrolling down on almost every page that you come to, because you have upcoming events. So here you can see our membership meetings are there, information about the fall getaway, and the more activities we have scheduled, the more little windows you'll see here. So that's the first welcome page. Second page is under About Us. And so there's a page about Minnesota Quilters, just telling us about our history, information about the board, minutes from board meetings, who to contact and how to contact, all of that kind of stuff. And then information about our mission. Newsletters have a new filing location. I think they used to be under membership. Now they will be here. And we will generally try to provide the last 12 months of whatever the newsletters happen to be. We do have a full archive of them, and if you're a history buff who likes to go back and read old copies, you can contact the communications team and they can provide a copy to you. We're trying to figure out how to get that unlocked and available, but right now it's kind of buried in a file. So we will talk about that more. Let's see. We also have Minnesota Quilters has a quilt collection, which no one knows about. The people in the Minnesota Quilt Project are kind enough to kind of take care of it and fold and unfold the quilts and make sure they're in good condition. But that's there, and you can see all the pictures of it, which is really lovely. And then applying for a grant, we do have some grants that we provide every year, either for people who are making quilts, or some of them are bigger grants, like to public television stations, and other opportunities. So that's there. Minnesota Quilt Show, this is where you link to get everything about the show and information even about past shows. Sponsor and supporter information is here. Getting involved. Under membership, there's types of membership, so how to be a business member. There's a membership directory, which most people don't know about. If your dues are paid, you can log into the membership directory when you're looking for the phone number for a new friend, somebody you've met here and you promised to give them a call and you lost a scrap of paper that you wrote the number down. You can go into the directory and figure out how to find them. And you can update your own member contact information and such. Volunteer opportunities. This just links you to Sign Up Genius, but information about it. And again, you have to, if you got here, you wouldn't know it was there, but if you scroll down, there's the Sign Up Genius button. We might try to figure out how to move that button upwards on the page. We also have information here about an outstanding volunteer award that happens every year. Let's see. Quilting for Others has a page telling about their schedule and what they do and how to connect with them. Activities and events, this is where you have a bit more information. It has the general meeting information, fees for those who are non-members and such. But if you just want to know what's going on this month or next month at MQ, you can see this calendar, and then when you click on it, like if you go to this, it tells you the date and time for that drop-off location for Quilters, Quilting for Others. So that can be useful, information about the mystery quilt. And then we also have a guilds directory. So for those of you who belong to other guilds, we always leave it open for those guilds to provide information and a contact. So if somebody is looking for a guild that's closer to their home, there's information here on who to contact. And if anybody would like to shepherd this particular area, we certainly could use someone who loves calling people and connecting and updating information. Minnesota Quilt Project, I think you're gonna hear more about today, but there are quilter stories, and you can write your own story about your life as a quilter if you want. They love to have that information and can work with you on getting that collected. So there's some information there. And then, of course, there's the very important Join Renew tab telling about ways that you can join or participate. And under the support MQ, you know, it can be just a gift or donation, but that information is also there. So that in brief is kind of what is happening with the website. So.
Show a search, because right now I'm looking at.
Oh, thank you so
You
much.
wouldn't see a newsletter, but I put in newsletter last night and
The search thing will always take you, so it's both newsletter ad rates and the newsletter itself. And then if you, it takes you back over to it. So there's a lot that's buried in this site that you might not know about, but I think, take a look that way and always use the search button. Thanks, Laura, for that reminder. Let's see, anything else? Question?
Is there anywhere on the website that has listings for retreats? Like retreat
Yes.
centers?
Oh, no, but that, again, one of the things that we always are challenged by is that there are so many great ideas of things that we all would love to have, like a listing of retreat centers, but it inevitably takes somebody who's willing to take care of that. Mary?
If you look under business members, I bet you find a few, because some
That-
of them are our business members.
okay.
All right, and I forgot where to do it, so I'm gonna look here. Business members. Here, okay. Thank you, Mary, for that suggestion. So current business members, these are people who have joined because they have businesses they want to promote to the quilting audience. And on any single one of these, let's see, do we have a retreat center listed here? Woodland Ridge.
It does say retreat by the name.
Yeah, it's, I don't know that that's link is taking me there. Oh, there it goes. Yeah. So that can just give, you know, can take you to the specific location. So, you know, obviously we always, as people join as business members, they will get added here. But so encourage, if you're at a retreat center, tell them about that feature. Maybe pick up a business membership card or tell them that they can go to our website and join as a business member and then get listed here, because I think that would be a great benefit to the retreat center, and that way our calendar or schedule gets bigger. Any other questions?
Are the raffle quilts identified in that quilt?
Directory?
Directory or something?
I don't think they are listed there. I know we certainly have photographed every raffle quilt we've ever done. We're gonna have to, that would be another good thing, to try and find them and pull them up. They've been featured in the older newsletters, and we're working on getting that, you know, making that more available. But if you have ideas of things you'd love to see on the website, I mean, that's a great suggestion, and let us know, we'll add it to the list. But anyone who loves digging around in history projects or old photos, you know, this would be a great thing to volunteer to do.
And how about a process? Because we can't just call up the office and say, oh, put this on the website. So what is our process?
Okay, so the process right now, I would say, be to the
The communications.
Webmaster.
webmaster at mq.org. Is it webmaster or website? It's website. website at MQ,
It's not empty, it's
minquilt.org, thank you. I always use shorthand. Yes, so website at minquilt.org. Tell them that you think this would be a great idea for something to add to the website. All right?
We're excited.
Thanks, everyone. Were there any questions on chat that showed up?
Was there any questions on the website?
All right, for those who are listening on Zoom, if you have questions as you're seeing the presentation and want to put them into chat, we can then hear from you as we go along. Laura?
Do you wanna stop sharing?
Yes, I can do it.
Thank you. So how many of you use the website fairly regularly? Okay, I know I use the membership directory a lot. I know I look up times and dates because as Lynn said, we think we're gonna remember and it's like, but want to make sure we don't miss a retreat or a sew-in day, or when is Quilting for Others going to be here so I can drop off my finished quilts, right, ladies? All right, next up is Becky Lindstrom, and she's going to tell us just how easy it is to make this beautiful quilt. So Becky, thank you in advance for sharing this with us. I'll move that for you. You can take this now.
Well, I'm really addicted to Pinterest. And I saw this a quilt on Pinterest and I couldn't figure out how they made it. It was really intriguing. It was a scrap quilt.
Louder, louder.
Oh, close it right to your mouth.
Kiss that baby.
Okay, I saw this quilt and it was really interesting. It had all these strip fabrics. I thought, boy, it was very scrappy. And I couldn't figure out how to do it for a while. And it's amazingly simple. The person who posted it didn't have a name. I'm calling it Pass the Envelope because I think these things look like little envelopes. And it didn't have dimensions. Zip. So I had this little teeny picture and I started saying, well, how do you do that? And so this is gonna be a little tricky with holding things.
What do you want me to hold?
Oh, hold up. So, well, not necessary, but useful. 12.5 inch square, because you make 12.5 inch squares. And this one to cut your strips, because otherwise you're gonna be doing it forever. Okay. You can hold up any of those. Okay. So I'm making 12.5 inch blocks, 12.5 inch blocks. And this one I'm making with the strips very distinct so you can see it easily. Okay. You can do anything from 1 inch to max about 2. And so whatever works easily, you could do. So you could do all 1.5 if you want.
What's in the coat?
All kinds of stuff.
What size strips?
Size.
It varies.
Oh, it does. Oh, they're not.
And so,
That's really rare.
let me start it like that. There you go. So when you're doing this, you sort of do something.
Top button.
Top button.
Should be a green flashing light.
Hello?
Yes, we killed the microphone.
I'm gonna speak loudly right in the middle.
You got a show. You got a show.
Okay, Zoom won't hear. When you do this, you want a stripy effect. So you don't want to put two darks together. You want to have distinct colors. And I lay them out on a board and then I start sewing together and then I check to see if it's going to be 12.5 inches. If it's not, I sneak something in to make it work.
Oh, it'll be just a second, see batteries.
Batteries, that's all.
Okay.
She,
What I heard you say is you want high contrast between stripes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So in this one, we have very high contrast between the strips alternating.
and she said if it doesn't get to 12.5 inches square, she just squeaks something else in there.
I do squeak
That's right.
things in. So there's a little red strip sneaked in here at the end. And if you don't, if it's not gonna work out right, you can put like a halfway strip. This one is not white, it's not dark blue, but it still works because there's enough contrast. Okay? Yes,
The quilt up there is low contrast.
Right,
Each
but-
individual- Cause that's, so that's special to make it look like that.
right,
Okay,
but it's the same pattern
right, got it,
and it's easier to see this way.
yeah, got it.
For a demo, this seemed like it would be easier. Plus it'd make a great quilt with Valor.
Okay.
Okay, are we good? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I've been following you guys the whole way.
I thought the picture the whole time. Okay. You take your 12.5 inch block and you cut it on the diagonals. Now, I have trouble remembering if you have piece A and piece B, doesn't work very well, and I go, oh, which one do I need? So I'm calling these sleepers because they're lying down. Oh, wait, these guys are sleepers because the base is like lying down. I'm calling these standers because when you turn it this way, this one's gonna stand up. Okay? Take a sleeper and a stander. Oh. That one's done. Okay. But it's just kind of easy, it's nice to see.
I'm sorry, did you say you cut the square into 4 triangles?
Yes.
It's like,
Right, along the diagonals.
along the diagonal, okay.
So there's
She
your,
has a piece of paper up here, right, with directions?
it has pictures.
Okay.
Okay. We should actually pass that out.
Okay.
Okay, okay, so you just need
A stick.
a sleeper on the bottom and a stander on top. This is the quilt. Like, seriously. No, that's the block right in there.
Oh, okay. They're all facing the same way. Set up. So this is set on the diagonal. The original quilt was set like this, set block to block like that. Now, if you do it block to block going across, you have to remember that all of the edges are gonna be on the bias, so you have to somehow stabilize the edge before you quilt it. But it's quick, and every big block that you make makes 2 smaller blocks. So that big one's gonna make two smaller ones.
And that's the size you use for the blue one?
Yes. So I do try to sneak in some smaller ones if I need
I put
to.
my,
This is so hard to do.
Here, let me hold it for you.
Okay. Okay, when I'm making my strip sets, I want to be sure that it looks stripy. Because otherwise you're gonna lose the effect. So this one right here is a lighter pink. It's next to two whites, but it's still gonna work because there's enough. So you just don't want it too much, the same value all the way across.
I noticed you did your seams open.
I did do my seams open because there's so darn many of them.
So to reduce the bulk, the seams are pressed open.
Right.
Turn it around.
Press
Okay. Now, the only thing different about this one is I started with very dark blocks along the outside edge. And then I thought, okay, I got the next row, and then I said, how am I gonna do this? Because I wasn't really, it's like you're aiming at a target that you don't see. So I made little ones here, and then I said, okay, now I just have to cut the difference between. So I still have all stripes. There is not as much contrast between the stripes. But I started with dark, took the dark piles first, and then I went down. And let's see, I need one of these.
Here, let me get it for you.
So because this quilt is set on point, that one is gonna go on the top, right there. Oh, boy.
Put it down halfway.
No, other way.
Other way.
And
Oh, I
it fits right in there to make your setting triangle. So the same one that you use for your big block is gonna be your setting triangle. Okay, and the one on the side is gonna go
it's the other way around.
this way.
But you can see, here's the block,
Oh, yeah.
and these are the setting triangles.
Oh, I see.
So block, setting triangle.
Walk your hand down one of the diagonals. Start in the corner and go back.
Yeah, right here.
Okay,
So that's all one row. And it ends with one triangle, and then there's the next row.
oh, and to make the little triangles in the corner, I made a strip set, I made two of them. And just wide enough to fit. And I made it a little bigger on the top and the bottom. And I cut one like this, and I cut the other one like that. One of them will fit the opposite corners, and the other one will fit the other two corners. So you don't have to do any other special math to get the setting triangles or any of that. Yes,
How many blocks?
let's see. I think there were 40, okay. But but for blocks, you don't need as many, the big blocks, because you have two smaller ones for each big one, so I think
So
it's in the
7
40s. So this is seven blocks across and down. And then just fit everything else in.
What is the size of that block?
It finishes at 8 inches square.
But it started at 12 and a half.
Started at 12
12 and a half, cut in half on the diagonal.
diagonals,
So two of those triangles.
and you sew the opposite kinds together.
Right. And you get an 8.5 inch block.
Yep. Before seams, yeah,
So it ends up being, these end up being 8 inches.
right. And when you go from one layer to the next, what I did was I just
took 3 or 4 fabrics, and I changed 3 or 4 fabrics, and that was enough for the change to make the shift.
From dark to light.
From darker to the next level, yeah, a little bit lighter. And then I just looked to try and make it work out to the center. This kind of quilt is gonna be really bright and cheerful.
Quilt is Valor.
I think one of the grandkids wants it already. But it's, when I said, it's an easy quilt to do, you're just doing a lot of strip sets and then cutting them on the diagonal.
Mary's got a question.
Yeah, I just want to add an interesting shortcut. If you use a variegated striped fabric and the same thing,
You
you
absolutely
can
could.
get an amazing, and I did it with a couple pieces of striped fabric that was 1 yard. And I cut it into like 6.5 and did that, and they're kind of little, but it makes a nice table runner. With 1 yard of striped fabric, and you get the idea of this, but it's cheap.
Yeah. So, I'm just trying to use up fabric. Thank you very much, Becky. Why don't we set the step outs on the board here so people can come up and look at them? Yeah. And I think next we have Caroline.
So that just looks so intriguing, you know, to go home and start stripping, you know, I mean. It's gonna be 80-some degrees today. You know what I mean? To start dividing our stash, and if you've done some of that cutting like Bonnie does, that, you know, where you already have 1.5 and 1 inch and whatever, I think this would really be fun to do. But what I want to point out to you is that everybody has something fun that they know that nobody else knows. So we really want to invite you to share with our membership. We're really appreciative that Bonnie stepped up for Schoolhouse and said, well, I know this, and I think other people would like to make it, and she's right. So when Liz gives you a call next summer and says, we're looking for someone for Schoolhouse, or you could even tell us now because we're working on our calendar. Yes.
I'd just like to say how impressed I am that she saw a picture and then translated that into a method.
Exactly, yes. And for sharing it, so thank you so much. Our next presenter is Carolyn Siflo, and she manages our standing committee, Minnesota Quilt Project, and she has some interesting information to tell us as well about the Quilt Index.
Okay, we need to get the projector back there. Sorry, Laura.
Good morning. I'm Caroline Soflo, and I want to introduce you to the Quilt Index. I hope it's not an introduction. I hope you're familiar with it already. But I'm a part of the Minnesota Quilt Project, and this is the group that has input information into the Quilt Index from Minnesota. So I just want to tell you about the link between the Quilt Index and the Minnesota Quilt Project. So this, maybe you're already familiar with the Quilt Index. If you Google the Quilt Index, you'll see this front page. The Quilt Index is an open source digital repository of descriptions of quilts and also stories about quilt makers. And the website is listed there. Now, when you see the site, you'll see a number of tabs at the top, and I want to talk about just a few of those tabs. So let's think about the history of the index. So At the time of the bicentennial, 1976, there was a very large resurgence in interest in quilting, quilt history, quilt making, and so forth. And so documentation projects began in many states. Volunteers went around and documented quilts all over their states. And the Minnesota Quilt Project, which was formed in 1987, was one of those volunteer groups. There were teams that traveled throughout Minnesota. The red X's here indicate the counties that were visited. And these groups got together with local persons, and local people brought their quilts and they documented them. And that resulted in 2005 in this book called The Minnesota Quilt. However, that book contains only a very small number of Minnesota quilts. So what is documentation? There are 4 documentation forms. There is a quilt description that includes all the details, measurements of the quilt. Then there is a quilt maker form. There is a form for ownership, acquisition, and provenance of the quilt. And finally, a permission form. And all of those forms are filled out during the documentation. And hopefully the maker or the owner has information about the maker so that it is not just a description. Unfortunately, many times it is just the physical description. Okay, next. So the Minnesota Quilt Project on our website now, we have those 4 forms. And if you are interested in documenting your own quilt, you can download those forms, fill them out, and send them along with a digital picture to the office here, and they will end up with MQP, and we can enter the information. Another way to do it is to get in contact with MQP at our email address and arrange a time for us to document your quilt. And that could be arranged at any time and at a time that's convenient for you, for example, after a quilt meeting or some other time, okay? So in about 1995, the Alliance for the American Quilts began to work with people at Michigan State University Museum. And along with support from the National Endowment for the Humanities, they were able to launch the Quilt Index in 2003. So all of the quilt projects from around the country were available now to be downloaded or uploaded into the Quilt Index. And there were many, many volunteers who took that hard copy information and put it onto the index. And that effort in Minnesota was led by Karen Kopitsky and more recently by Kelly Willis. At the moment, there are nearly 6,000 Minnesota quilts on the index. So the Quilt Index is still based at Michigan State University, and it is within their Center for Digital Humanities and Social Sciences. The director of it is Marcia McDowell. She's a curator in the museum, and she's also a professor of art and art history at MSU. The day-to-day managing of the database is carried out by the associate director, Beth Donaldson. And they have about 90,000 quilts currently in the database, okay? So how can this quilt index be used by quilters? Well, it can be used for research, for education, and for inspiration. So I've taken here this list of tabs and just enlarged them. So the tabs that you can examine are quilts, stories, artists, collections, resources, ephemera, add quilts, about, which is about the index, and search. So I just want to go through a few of these tabs with you to just give you an idea of what's there. Next. So here, I clicked on the quilts tab, and I'm looking at a sub-tab called featured. So the featured tab just shows a rotating selection of quilts. And you can just see what happens to be up there that day. Actually, on this image, there are a number of these quilts that came from Minnesota. For example, this one, these two, a couple of the others are actually Minnesota quilts. Now, you can compare two quilts. You see this little circle in the upper right-hand image for the quilt. You can click on that circle, and any quilts that you have clicked on can be compared. So I clicked on those two butterfly quilts, and then I clicked compare. And let's go to the next slide. And here we see the two quilts compared. And you would be able to view the full record for each of those quilts. And in doing that, you could see that this one was documented in Spring Grove, Minnesota. This one was documented at the Textile Center. So that suggests that perhaps these quilts were made in different parts of the state, and that perhaps the makers were using a common pattern, had seen a pattern. For example, something that had come out in the newspaper, or quilt batting wrapper, or some other common inspiration that they were seeing. Okay, let's go on. Now, if we stay on the quilts tab, but look at location, now we're seeing quilts from all different places. And these locations are listed alphabetically. So here is the Minnesota location. So now you could click on Minnesota and see an array of Minnesota quilts. Or you could click on any other state and see quilts from that state. This includes not only states, but also quite a few countries, because this is an international database. Okay, next. So we could stay on quilts, and now we could go to pattern name, and we could look at the quilts arrayed based on their pattern or their technique. So for example, here are broderie purse applique quilts. Here are quilts using the bear's paw pattern. So if you wanted to be inspired, if you're interested in a certain pattern, you could go on the index and look at all of the quilts that have been documented that use the bear's paw pattern, for example. Okay. Okay, so now we've moved from quilts to collections. And this simply includes all of the collections, such as the documentation projects. So one of the possibilities is to examine documentation projects. And of course, you could find the Minnesota Documentation Project this way. You could also look at special collections and legacy projects. So this includes collections from museums and also collections that belong to specific individuals. So this is a part of the index that is growing. They're trying to get more and more museum collections, for example. Okay, next. So here we're at resources. And I wanted to bring this one up to show you that something that you might really want to look at. Under resources, one of the categories is essays. So these essays are written by quilt scholars, and they are about specific quilting topics. One of the interesting ones I've pointed out here with this arrow is this article or essay by Meg Cox, who was a speaker here. And she is giving a journalist's view of how to use the Quilt Index. And it's a very helpful article that I think everybody should read. And one of the things that she focuses on is how to appropriately use images that are on the Quilt Index. So I think I really would like to recommend that article. Okay. Now, we moved on here to the search tab. So we can use the search tab to drill down to specific things that you might be interested in. So if you can use this top search area just to put in a keyword, and that could be anything, a quilter's name, a pattern, or anything that you might come up with. Unfortunately, sometimes if you do this, you just get so many quilts, it's overwhelming. So it's sometimes better to be more specific. So this section below is just part of the advanced quilt search. And so here you could put in the ID number. So I brought along this little tab. If you've ever had a quilt documented by Minnesota Quilters, by the Minnesota Quilt Project, you know that you get a little tab like this on the back of your quilt, and it will have a number. And that number you can put in here, and that will help you to pull up that quilt. The Quilt Index also assigns a number called a KID number, and that is another number that can be used to pull up the quilt. But you can also, for example, search for quilt maker, and you can narrow down your search to Minnesota quilts by looking here in this category where it says project collection. You can select Minnesota Quilt Project if you just want to focus on Minnesota quilts.
Carolyn?
Yes.
Are all Minnesota quilts in that collection?
All the ones that
MVP?
Yes.
So does it have to have been documented by MQP or?
Yes.
Okay, so
I
there's
think-
nothing that was documented by anybody else that still have a Minnesota source?
I think, I shouldn't say absolutely not, but almost all the quilts that are in the index came through the MQP line.
Thank you.
Okay, so just as an example here, I searched for Helen Kelly as quilt maker. And notice that I used quotation marks around Helen Kelly, so that both of those words would be required to in the search. And next, here you can see what happened. So I came up with 112 quilts made by Helen Kelly. And you can click on any one of these quilts and get the full documentation information. So just as an example, This is her England quilt. And I think we saw this one actually, when her daughter spoke. And this gives the full description of the quilt and the maker. And this one happens to be kid number, which you would also be able to search for that with that kid number. That's the quilt index number. Okay. So one of the things that we are working on in the Minnesota Quilt Project is, again, under this search tab, we're trying to develop stories. So in a project that was funded by a grant, the project is led by Jennifer Cruz, we found old taped interviews made in the 1980s with Minnesota quilters, most of whom are not with us anymore. And Jennifer had those tapes transcribed, and those transcriptions are now part of the story that is linked to these individuals. So for example, we have these various women who were interviewed, and the transcripts are up here under stories. Now we are also moving, with the permission of the person being interviewed, of course, we're also moving our current quilter stories. So some of you have cooperated with us to give us a quilter story, and we are putting those on the quilt index. For example, Karen Kopitsky is one of the people who has her story on the quilt index. So we are trying to expand this stories aspect. And I have to say that it is one of the goals of the quilt index to be not just describing quilts, but to be describing the stories of the quilt makers, and to just, which is part, of course, of women's history. Okay, so just finish up here. I want to tell you about this YouTube video. It's an interview with Marcia McDowell and Beth. And they were interviewed by somebody from the Modern Quilt Guild. And this textile talk is available online as a YouTube video. And I will put the link to this video in the Thursday Thimbleful, because this is a really fun way to learn about the quilt index. Yes.
Could you please also put that link to that article that you said we should all
Okay.
read? I think that
Yes,
was
the next.
Okay.
more about the
Okay,
big
yes, I
grass.
can do that, yeah. Yes.
I have two questions.
Mhm.
Does the quilt need to be from Minnesota or the quilter from Minnesota?
So-
Like Wisconsin have one of these,
So Wisconsin has one of these, yes.
so I should contact them.
But there's a kind of, so I recently documented a quilt that was made in Wisconsin, but it lived in Minnesota for 50 years. So I decided, since I knew that it would get up there faster if I did it. It is a wonderful story, and it is on it's on the stories. The family who had this quilt eventually now, in fact, just a few months ago, they gave it back to a little local museum in Wisconsin. The whole story is on the index. But I decided that since it had lived here for most of its life, I could put it on the Minnesota site. So this is kind of gray area there.
Okay, my second question is about fabric. I love fabric, dating, stuff. Does the quilt index allow you to go and search, like, say, 1930s or 1890s? And then
Yes,
you see the fabric, and, or you can't, so.
yes, you can
Time period
You
was
can
one.
do dates, yes,
Oh, wow.
I didn't show that, but certainly you can.
Wow, okay.
Now, I have to say that when we document now, we're using our cell phones, we have great cameras. In those early documentations, they were, first of all, documenting lots of quilts in one day, and they were taking slides, and they weren't getting close-ups of the fabrics. So sometimes you can see the pattern, but you really can't see details of the fabric. So it just depends on what it is. It is a good way to see fabrics, but not in every entry, because it's simply, you know, think back what we had for photography 30 years ago. Yes.
My question's similar to her first one. I have a friend who just inherited a quilt and she was telling me the stories. I'm like, you should get this documented. Oh, but it was made in Indiana. Would MQP be willing to?
So why does
document
she
it?
have it?
She inherited it from the, I don't,
Okay, so this is kind of it's
You don't
an
wanna-
interesting thing. I don't know the Indiana collection. I don't know those people. She could try to get in contact with them and document it there. One of our MQP members, Kelly Willis, has a lot of quilts that came from Nebraska. And she doesn't feel that they should go into the Minnesota Quilt Project entries, but, you know, I feel like it should be documented so that it gets in there.
so.
Yes.
Oh.
Is there a way to link a quilt that maybe was made in Illinois, Indiana, or whatever? If you document it in Minnesota, is there a way to link it to the other state?
Yes, because the information that you enter, say, it definitely says where the quilt made in, and then you put the city, the county, the state. So yes, it will link.
So the
Yes.
forms you're using now
Mhm.
are standard for the whole country, whereas I imagine when the project started, each one of them was creating their own questions.
Yes, they were talking to each other, so the questions were similar. Karen updated our forms so that our forms sort of fit the flow of information that is on the quilt index, so that when we do our entry, we just go bing, bing, bing down the line. So I think most quilt projects have done that. Yes.
So I'm gonna add on a little bit to your story about the quilt index. So for those who do have quilts that aren't Minnesotan and don't feel comfortable using MQP to do the documentation, you can actually enter your own in now. They have a self-entry section on the website if you feel comfortable doing that. Not please feel free to reach out to MQP because they're awesome and they will help you. The other thing that was totally missed is that we don't just want your story, we don't want your grandmother's stories, we want your aunt's story. Anybody who taught you how to quilt, Miledex wants to hear how we built this history of quilting. So it's really important if you have that information. She's like, you need the mic.
Yes, that would be better. So the Zoomers.
Okay, so as I was saying, all right, so the Quilt Index now has a way that you can self-inform and self-enter if you feel compelled to do so. So if you have stuff that you don't feel comfortable going to Minnesota Quilt Project about, you know, the person with the Indiana quilt. I don't know if there's an Indiana project. I imagine there probably is because there's a huge historic component in Indiana. The Midwest Fabric Study Group is out of Indiana. So there's possibilities there. But if you have stuff, I have a lot of stuff from Maryland. I have a lot of stuff from Virginia. I could go to the Maryland people, but I'll probably just enter it myself. The other thing about the stories is it's not just your stories. We want your stories because you are all part of quilting history. But think about your grandmother, your aunt, who taught you how to quilt, even if it wasn't one of them. Tell their stories too. I'm going out to visit my aunt, who's 83, who taught me, and I'm totally gonna use the form that Carolyn has put together with Jennifer to interview her to put on the Quilt Index, because her story needs to be told just as much as anybody else's. Third, the one section she missed was ephemera. If you like newspaper clippings about quilting, if you have newspaper clippings about quilting, you have Kansas City Star cutouts, Capper's Weekly, all the old booklets that we see coming up on the free tables all the time, all of those are getting entered and scanned in too. And Beth does all of that. Beth does a ton of work. Oh my goodness, she's so busy. But definitely check it out because it's so cool to see this long-standing history. We have quilts from 1800 all the way to the winners of this year's show. So thanks.
So let me just finish this slide and then I'll take another question. I am a retired teacher and I loved to assign homework. So what I would like you to do is go into the Quilt Index and send a message to MQP to our email address and just share something that you found or thoughts about the index and send it in to the email site. It will not be graded, but I can guarantee that you will get a response. So this is the Quilt Index QR code quilt. This was made by Beth Donaldson, the Associate Director, and if you take a picture of it, put this on your camera, you would be able to access the Quilt Index.
Yeah.
Okay, now I just want to, did it work for you?
Yes.
She's there.
Now, I want just to finish up. This quilt over here is, are you a member of MQ? Then it's your quilt. And this quilt is one of the quilts in the Minnesota Quilters Collection. And it was documented. On the back of it, it will have a tag like this, which has its number. But if you happen to have your phone now, and you want to go into the Quilt Index, look for Loon Medallion. So you can search for Loon Medallion, and this quilt will come up. And the story of this quilt and the group of persons who made it will come up. So all of the Minnesota Quilt Collection is on the Quilt Index. Okay, so that's it. And another question.
Well, I know this would be going down a rabbit hole for me to start, look at this, look at this. But if you're spending some time and you find some quilts, oh, I want to go back and look at those. Is there a place to like save your search, or can you set up like an account and say, here's my favorites? Is there something like that, or?
You can do compare. I know about the compare. I'm not sure about your question. I would actually have to ask Beth about saving an array of quilts. I'm not sure about that.
So I'd like to search pillar prints. I have reproduction pillar print, but I'm just not sure what's an authentic quilt block to put in the center of that. And even though I have some state documentation books, they're not real prolific. You'll find a pillar print, but not with the blocks in it,
So I think that would be an excellent question to ask Beth. You could certainly try searching pillar print. Be sure to put pillar print in quotation marks and just see what you get. That would be interesting, but I'm sure she would be able to provide more information on that. Any other questions? Yes.
Okay, it's kind of not good to index, but everybody talks about, I have this quilt, that quilt. How do you store all these special quilts that people?
So the Minnesota Quilt Project stores the Minnesota Quilters Collection in these archival boxes. And they are stored in a temperature-controlled storage locker.
Okay,
And
like say you have 10 special ones at a home.
yes. I do have those, yes. There are other ways to store quilts, and we probably don't want to get into all the details of it. But one of the things to remember is that cellulose fibers will break from being folded. So one way to store quilts is to lay them out on a bed with sheets between them, if you have an extra bed, so that they're not being stressed. when we put them in these boxes, they're folded up with tissue paper between them so that the folds are not tight. So that, yes, there are ways to store quilts safely. I think most museums, if they have the space, spread them out in huge drawers.
You can roll them as well.
You can roll them, that is another way, and that, prevents that folding.
Can you order these boxes from Amazon?
Yes, you can order these boxes. Be sure that they're archival boxes. Mhm. Yes. Okay, thanks. Yes.
Thank you, everyone who presented. This was wonderful. Becky, Carolyn, Wynn, and big thank you to Debbie Bowles of Maple Island Quilts. We're gonna take our 15-minute break now. If you haven't done so already and you'd like to be in the BQ5 drawing, there are pens, pencils, and little pieces of paper to include your name. Zoomers, please do email us, and we've only gotten 4 in so far. But during break, we'll add your names to the bucket, so.
And door prize tickets, put your door prize tickets in.
Yeah, and door prize tickets in the door prizes, they will be separate.
Nicholas, let's just hold the bottom button. It'll start blinking. I mean, it's muted. You're good.
Sorry.
Don't touch it. Every time I see you now, it's don't touch it.
Oh, because she was using the mouse and I'm trying to hit. You're trying to do that. Trying to fix it and you're messing me up.
Remember my dogs?
I got boxes and and she finds one of my I never said thank you so big. I could never that I have. And so I bring it to the sent me a picture and I said, hey, and then you asked to change. He said, they're not happening. And I said, no. She knew that I would say that. That's why she asked me. So she, and I've figured out this long. Well, plus there are many intersections. I mean, so it wasn't just the block that was taken out, it was everything in it. Anyway, oh, that made you panic. She knows you would do a really good job, and I stayed there. I know. I'm glad it's up on the wall.
It is. Oh, it's a wow. It would take 3 minutes.
Such a $1 kid, and then you got another $100 for that.
I swear she would.
I mean, that's the problem that I have. I say, yeah.
Swipe by her.
I know.
All right. Oh, thank you. Thank you again to all of our presenters. That was really so informative and glad there's not going to be a test, Carolyn. But we will pay attention to your homework. All right.
Next, do you want to just jump right in?
Sure. All right, a little bit. So do we have just a tad better? Where does it go? Where's it the best? Right there. Our October meeting, Tracy Trevathan, she's been a vendor at our show many times, and if you work with wool, chances are you've purchased some of her hand-dyed wool. It's really fun, vibrant colors. So Thursday, my quilting journey, how I started quilting and fabric dyeing, and she will have a trunk show online during the Zoom, and then on Saturday, our hybrid meeting, she'll be in person. And I'm assuming that she's going to have be a bit of a vendor. She'll have projects and wool and patterns and things like that available. If you've been a long-standing member, you might remember way back when we actually used to have Thursday night and Friday morning meetings, and we had vendors at the Thursday night meeting and at the Friday, so they'd stay over. And oh my gosh, yes, the meeting was great, but you came for the shopping, I'm telling you. So we're trying to bring a little bit of that excitement back. So I think you'll look forward to seeing her in October. Next.
Hang on a second, we're having tech
Okay.
issues.
We're having issues.
Please.
That's all right.
I'll get away.
Somehow we lost our connection to Zoom.
Oh, okay.
So just hold on.
All right, so I'm sure this is part of an announcement, but you'll notice over there, the little tri-board over there that has information about the 2024 show. So we are still looking for people to sign up to be on the show committee. It is in Duluth next summer. It's a great place to go for a cool show. Some of the shops that I visit when I'm up there, because my daughter lives there, they're so looking forward to the show being back in Duluth again. So think about being on a committee for sure, block out the dates so that you are available to sign up for the show or attend classes as well.
I need a partner in crime.
Yes, yeah, well, and you have the most fun crime.
Okay, what's her fun crime?
And what?
Yeah, what's her fun
She's the co-chair of merchandise.
Merchandise.
But she's just, she's my sister. She really is that fun.
It's like shopping with somebody else's credit card. So you get a budget and then you get, well, do we like these t-shirts? Do we like these bags? What should the emblem be or the logo? And it's just fun to make those decisions. And they send you samples. So, not to mention how much fun you are to work with.
She really is.
All right, we have a day retreat coming up in November, 9 through 11. Register online for 3 days. Sew all day and sleep at home. Sleeping at home has its advantages. I just went to the Madison show with 3 friends and we're all in the same room. And if you don't have noise canceling earbuds and somebody snores, it's like going home to your own bed's a good deal sometimes. So think about joining us. A lot of people that I've met and now am friends with, I met them at the day retreat. So please join us. Next.
Wait a minute. Where are we going forward now?
And I'll mention at the day retreat that we have ironing boards set up, we have cutting tables, so that's another thing that you don't need to bring all of those things. My husband used to wonder when we were first married, where are you going? You go away for the whole weekend, what's going? He said, and then he finally went, yeah, you're taking your iron and your ironing board in the laundry basket. I guess I don't have anything to worry about. I mean, really. And then our fall getaway, Linda Wines is hosting that in October, the 11th through the 15th. It's at the Riverside Inn. in Cold Spring. Right now, I think it is sold out.
It seems to be.
There is a wait list, and you know, life happens. So if you're thinking of going and, oh, I missed the deadline, go ahead and sign up for the wait list.
The problem with the fall getaway, the problem with the fall getaway is, this year anyway, is a wedding got booked. And so, but this week, I understand that those rooms might be opening up. Or the ones that were not booked by the wedding, so,
They're still getting married though, right?
So, and then, according to the hotel, they said, as you mentioned, they said coaches like to sleep by themselves. So if you're really willing to share, we can have more people and more fun. So I encourage to share a room.
Okay.
What happens at the fall getaway?
At the fall getaway,
Is it a cold show or is it?
It's a retreat.
It's a
It's a retreat,
Okay.
but it's a stay retreat. You stay there. Somebody told me about meals. Are you meals on your own?
Yeah,
It's on your own except breakfast.
Except breakfast. Okay. Bring your own
And then we have
projects.
a pizza on.
And I believe the sewing room is open pretty late or all
24/7.
24/7. Okay, so if you're late, 2 a.m, where's my rotary cutter? It's open and you can do that.
Laura,
Yes.
there's a grocery store that's across the street.
And a liquor store across.
They've got all sorts of
Everything you need from groceries to libations are right there.
There's a swimming pool.
And a swimming pool. Well, that's a joke among my friends and I. We always, did you bring your suit? Yeah, right. But when I used to travel with my grandmother and I was a teenager, a little younger, and I was always, let's get a hotel with a pool, let's get a hotel. She said, if I pay for a hotel with a pool, you are getting in that pool. And she meant it. And there was one time when it was really cold. You're getting in that pool. Anyway, our quilters will have a good time. Our scholarship, are you a new quilter? Do you know a new quilter? You probably aren't a new quilter, but I bet you know some. When I'm working at the shop, I'm surprised how many people come in with a friend and say, this is her first quilt. We're gonna pick out fabric and here's our pattern. And so keep your eyes and ears open. See if you know of someone or a friend knows of someone, or you meet somebody in a class that they're just learning how to quilt. And we'd really like to encourage them to fill out our scholarship application. And anyone who has been a recipient of this scholarship has been so gracious and thankful for that opportunity to not only see what other quilters are doing, but meet the community of quilters that we are. And let me tell you, we are good people. So make sure that you let somebody know about that. And then, as I mentioned, our quilt show, June 13th through the 15th. I'll be there on my birthday again, but it's just kind of, my son used to send me flowers on my birthday and he goes, yeah, you're not really gonna be home, are you? I went, no. I'm at the quilt show. So we have some faculty members lined up already. Rose Allen is going to be working, you want to say some beginning quilt classes, but you're also doing machine walking foot?
We haven't quite determined
Okay.
everything, but, really focusing on beginners. You let me.
I'm working with Helen Smith Stone, who is up in Duluth, and she and I are focusing on a track for beginners. We have, stay tuned. Yes, thank you, Mia. Stay tuned. We want to make some in-depth kinds of things, but also some very quick, almost like schoolhouse sessions that people can take. And, you don't have to be a beginner to do it. Sometimes it's the tricks you want to learn. So, stay tuned. We're working on the concept right now.
Well, thank you. And here are the names, some you may be very familiar with. Some of the people, we're still finishing some contracts with people that we had to cancel with during the pandemic, and now their schedule has freed up. So Jolene Fitzgerald, who you see advertised a lot on quilting cruises, so she's going to be with us. We have two judges who have instruction classes for us, Carly Porter, Maria Shell. She was our keynote when we did our virtual quilt show. She's just an amazing, amazing woman, a quilter out of Alaska, and you will just love her work. And she's going to be our keynote, our banquet speaker in 2024. Claudia Clark Myers, you may remember her. She and Marilyn Badger won numerous awards at quilt shows. She's still quilting up in Duluth. Had 2 quilts in the Madison show, and recently won a prize for, if you can picture the old office buildings, like from the Art Deco period, how elevators used to be, and then they'd have those metal doors that would close with all that decoration on them. She did a quilt based on one of those elevator designs. It's just beautiful. It's gonna hang at our show. Rose mentioned Helen Smith Stone, and we know Paige Johnson, yes, prolific long-arm quilter, but she has something new that she and her staff have been working on. It's gonna be a class and it's gonna be part of a special exhibit. So I think you'll be interested in that. More information is here. Sign up is over there. You can always email the office or Brenda direct and say, here's what I'm interested in. If you're not sure what the job entails, you can go online and the job description is there. So we look forward to having you join us on the show committee. Okay, next.
And there
And
it
here
is.
we are. You know why to join. Number one, yes, we need you, but it's fun. You're missing out if you're not joining in some capacity. And if you can't join as a committee leader or member, please think about volunteering when you're at the show, because it's really nice to know that those volunteer positions are going to be filled, as opposed to waiting the day of for people to walk in the door and say, oh yeah, I have a free moment. Right, Joe? Yes.
Put you to work.
Yeah, we got things for you to do. So please think about that. We need you. Task force. And we need to think about the future as well. So it's not just the upcoming show in 2024. We need to think about what is the direction we're headed in, because we're coming up to the cycle where we do requests for proposal, where we sign up at different convention centers for 3 or 4 years out, so that, we have the date and we have the facility. But how do we determine a facility if we're not really sure the direction that the show wants to go? Are we growing? Are we not? Are we kind of is this the size we're going to be with, just 2,000 to 3,000 attendees? If so, then, we don't need to rent an entire convention center. On the other hand, we'd like to get back to more vendors. We seem to always be holding our own when it comes to quilts in both our judged and non-judged and special exhibits. So that's good news. But so we're looking for some people with some input to that. And we don't want it just to be the same old people who are doing this. We want some fresh ideas. If you've been to shows on the East Coast or West Coast and you see what they're doing and go, well, why aren't we doing that here in Minnesota? We need you on that committee to give us some of those ideas. So we want to meet your expectations, but we also need to be a financially successful show. Okay, so here's how you get in touch with Brenda, show director at mnquilt.org. And it's a short task force, starting in October, running through December, so that anything that you come up with or decide that we can start implementing that in the 2024 show or future.
So you are looking for people who have never really been on the show committee as well?
Well, I know she does want a representative of somebody who's been on the board in the past. We'd like somebody who's worked as a show committee in the past, but then we'd like some members at large. Obviously, we'd like it if you've been to one of our shows. Yes. Well, what now?
Zoom meeting?
Yes, they will be Zoom meetings, right? You don't have to drive into the church anymore to attend meetings. We find that we get much better participation if we can say, here's the date, sit at home, have a cup of coffee, eat your dessert, whatever.
For Saturday at 9 a.m. on Zoom.
is when they'll be meeting.
Show committee.
Oh, the show committee,
Oh,
yeah, not
that's
the
different.
task force.
But the task force is gonna be on Zoom.
That will be a Zoom meeting as well, and those dates are to be determined probably by who comes to the committee and when their availability
Right.
is. But the show committee, yes, we'll start right up, is this September?
Yep.
We'll start in September,
2 weeks from
so next,
now. 2 weeks from now,
yeah, so next slide.
Saturday the 23rd.
One more, I think we're ready for show and tell.
Oh, okay, we missed it.
Another announcement.
I have a couple of more, yes.
Okay, you have more announcements?
No, I mean, you can go ahead, then somebody has an announcement, they have a sale.
Oh, okay.
Hi, I'm Barb Barron, and I have a business called Barb's Buddies. I have over 150 bolts of fabric that have to go. I'm having a sale, and it's $13 a pound. You cut whatever you want off the bolts. You don't have to take the whole bolt or I have pre-cuts like you wouldn't believe. People think I'm sick because I have so much. But it's gotta go. I'm closing that part of my business. I'm not gonna be, I do craft shows. So I just gotta get rid of all this fabric. It's gonna be at Charlotte Pittman's house, because she volunteered to use her garage, which my husband thinks she's nuts. But anyways, I've got some flyers here and it's gonna be, I don't even know the date, but it's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I think it's the 28th, 29th, and 30th of September. But it's a good deal. The fabric is is like Hoffman, Timeless Treasure, Island Boutiques, P&B fabric, Dear Stella, all of them. So there's a lot there to pick. It's real hard to give up though.
Thank you.
Bring a
And
sympathy
in
card.
addition, she has an ad in this month's newsletter, so if you need more information, take a look at the newsletter.
Hi, I have to talk about, a little bit about MQ Business. We talk about so much fun, it's a great place, great organization. With our two pieces of business I'd like to talk about today, you all should have received an invitation in your email to vote for next year's board of directors. Please, if you haven't done so yet, go back to that and please vote. We would like to have more than 20 votes. We have a big guild of 780 people or something, I'm not sure the number today, but we'd really like to get a good representation. The second business topic is that we also are required by our bylaws to have an annual meeting. You also, in the last Thursday's Thimbleful, there was an invitation for this coming Tuesday at 6:30 via Zoom to attend a 45-minute or less annual meeting where we'll review what happened. Annual meetings used to be held at the show, so this is very late, like we're very, very tardy. We apologize, lots of different reasons. But normally their annual meeting and the election used to happen at the show. That changed during COVID, so now the election is ongoing right now and the annual meeting will be now. Hopefully next year they'll be closer to the June timeframe and they may even be ready to have it at the show, but we don't know. Oh, yeah, at the annual meeting, because we know the big enticement when it was at the show was that there was a sewing machine. I'm sorry, I don't have a sewing machine. However, I do have a $100 gift certificate for one member who wins the door prize. And they will get that at any quilt shop they want, quilt shop of their choice. And then we also have a lot of other quilty door prizes that we'll be giving out during the meeting. So please plan on attending. We would very much appreciate your attendance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary.
When did you want to?
When do you have an announcement? All right, thank you. All right, now drawings. First for the BQ5 challenge, yes, and then door prizes. Oh, do we have show and tell?
Show and,
And I
let's
have
do show and tell.
Do show and tell, okay, show and tell. At that table, we'll line up.
Yeah.
All right, and we need hold.
We could use some holders and folders, and if you'd please write your name down on the clipboard over there, what you're showing, and we need a photographer too. Who would like to photograph quilts as they come up? Oh, thank you.
Do I pin you?
Get a camera.
This is my job.
Because I want you to get the one everyone sees.
Here. One front here. And we'll make sure they get in front of you. Okay.
Oh, wow.
I've just been cleaning and, I got a whole bunch of 1.5 inch strips. I started out.
It's
making
not
a-
working.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, it is working.
I started making out a twin, but it ended up being a baby. So all these are just QFO tops. Let me see. Oh, this one, I don't know where some of my blocks come from. They just were QFO blocks somehow that I got, and there were only 8 of them, and I needed 9. And I found this fabric, and I just thought, well, that's kind of jungle color, so. Baby quilt. This is another, orphan block quilt. I don't know where these came from. They were in with fabric I got from QFO, and just had enough to put on the border of another quilt. I mean, these I only had to make one. So just another QFO. I think there's one more in there. Oh, this is the ugly quilt. I had a bunch of fabric blocks that were, sizes like that there. And I didn't know what to do with them. And so I just, if I could cut a block the size that I needed for this quilt, I cut it. I didn't care what fabric it was. I just cut it.
Was that using Melissa's back porch 7-inch whatever tool?
Yeah, and then I ended up giving it at the Maple Grove retreat. I put it on the free table because I was given a bunch of rulers by somebody, and I put them all on the table, and then I didn't have enough to do this, the size. So I had to trace my blocks and then cut them out with the scissors. I had to do another 12 or something to get it this size, so anyway. That's it.
That's awesome.
This is really big. Okay, you have to hold it this way, and I'll explain why. So if anybody watched okay, my name's Kim Andrews. This was from Kim LePasic's online COVID type mystery in 21. And so you made all these blocks, and then she asked you to try and figure out how they were supposed to be put together because they had to be put together a certain way. And it spells project quilting in Braille. So PROJECTQU and then the rest quilting. The only thing you need to look at are the black dots. And she suggested that you pencil quilt it. So if you turn it around, I don't know if you can see it from here, but you have to not do any quilting in the black. So that if somebody was actually feeling it, they could tell. On her, she had rickrack on the top so that you could tell which was the top and the bottom. I didn't have rickrack, but boy, that pencil quilting takes forever. And then when you're going around the squares and turn it back to the other side, as far as, you've got to do just a little quilting in here and then go back out here and then go down. And then when you get to the next one, do a little quilting in between them. So it took days to do that. But yep, it's finally done, and the top's been done for 2 years, so.
Don't we have to be in the middle or something?
No, I follow you.
So my name is Wendy Keiser, and this was a class at the quilt show this year. It was Beauty at the Beach with Linda Hahn, and it was the New York Beauty Blocks is what she focused on creating, and the you can see she used stabilizer that you can leave in for the
Eye shape.
yeah.
New York Beauty Blocks. Very cool.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Upside down. Okay, now the elephant.
I bought this kit a year ago. I bought this kit a year ago.
It is.
Yeah,
It shouldn't be bloody, it should just be solid too.
okay. So I bought this kit at the show, not this year, but last year. And I started sewing it. And the reason I purchased it is because my nephew, his father is from India. And these are Indian elephants. And last June, he and his wife had twins. And I thought this would be a wonderful present for them. Well, in August, I wrecked my shoulder. And so for 9 months, I couldn't do any sewing. And I maintained my mental health somehow or other. And now finally finished it. I'm gonna give it to them tomorrow. So that was that one. And then this one, you'll know exactly what it is the minute you see it.
Oh, wow.
My daughter gave me this fabric from Hawaii about 6 years ago, and there it was sitting in this collection, looking at me and scolding me. And the week before the fire in Lahaina, where she purchased the fabric, before the fire, a week before that, I started this. And so here we are, and I'm ready for the show next year. Little did I know. Oh, good one. Well, this is not.
Yeah, you have to talk right to the top.
There you go. Oh, wow.
Well, this is a quilt I just made for my brother. I've always made him lap quilts with the wildlife theme. And so I thought that's what he would want again, but no, he wanted a king size quilt. So this is for him. This was probably among the top 3 quilts I made that were a real challenge. It took me almost a year to piece that quilt.
Wow.
Okay. Still in process.
Hi, my name's Beth Robinson, and I saw this quilt at the Chaska Quilt Show. Diane Rose and I were together when we saw it, and it was on display with City Block at their vendor area. And this is Tilda Fabric, and it's called Down Memory Lane, and the book is called Successful Scrap Quilts, I believe. But when we saw it on display, it was like love at first sight. So we both purchased the fabric, and I was working on it. I started in May, and as you can see, I'm almost done binding it, but that's what I've been working on most recently.
Wow.
My name is Mary Willard,
We went to Hawaii last year for vacation to Maui and, for my son's graduation, high school graduation. And I bought like a yard of each of these fabrics, not knowing what I was gonna do with it, and then came home to try to figure out. And I cut this on my active quilt, so if you have an active quilt, but it's this block, and I just cut it out and then I pieced it all together and tried to not put two colors together. So it was a challenge for me to lay all that out. But that's my life.
So Laura Daigle, and this was made as a shop sample for Twin Cities Quilting, and when she finishes either selling the kit or selling the collection of fabric, you get to take it home. So it just came home a week or so ago. I call it a woodland retreat, obviously because of the Twin Nature theme and then this wood border. But I think it turned out nice. Not any of my colors, but you know, Faye, she makes it go together, so it's pretty, I like it.
Hi, I'm Rose Allen. I have a lot of batik scraps. And I found this block on Pinterest, thank heavens for Pinterest. Very, very simple strip block. But let me show you the back, because each of those blocks is individually quilted and then put together. You know how you're always looking for some way to make a bigger quilt, but you have a small machine? This works really well. So you can see that I put them together with sashing. And it is something I might teach at the quilt show. We're not sure. Because it really is a fun technique, and it allows you to make bigger quilts. This quilt will be donated to Project Home through the Evergreen Quilters at my church, because they're looking for twin size bed quilts. But it was a lot of fun to make and fast, so. Everybody? Okay, next we are looking for Laura. There she is. Okay, both of us. We are going to do our. Oh, look at all of these. We are going to draw for our 20 free patterns. Where are they? They're around here somewhere. I never saw them. Okay. I think they were up here.
They were underneath.
Are they under?
We did walk back through. Yeah, that's a good idea.
All right, choose one and read the name.
Mary Ann.
Marianne.
Thank you. No, I don't have that one.
Virginia Gleason.
Yay! All right.
Amy Hargens.
Louise Somers. I just grabbed the first one.
Sure.
Jenny. Thanks, Jean, I'll pay you later.
Leah. Jordy.
Congratulations.
Colleen Backus.
Stir 'em up.
Yeah.
Sandy Foster.
The Zoomers are all on the bottom.
No, I stirred them out, but no.
Margaret Lundberg.
Oh, right here.
Joe, you.
Kathy Simon Frank.
Marlene Ropes. Rosties.
Marlene?
All right. Sherry Miller.
Yep, she's gonna get two.
Kielsmeister.
Deb.
Deb Kielsmeyer?
She might be online.
She might be a Zoomer.
Do we have a Zoomer?
Deb, let me see if she's on my list.
I think.
Yes, she is. She's a Zoomer.
All
Give me
right.
10.
How many more do we have?
4.
I have
5.
Becca Brackett?
All right, yeah.
Sarah Marker?
Kathy Nelson?
She's got 2 left. You got 2 left? 3.
Carolyn Davidson. She had to leave, but,
Okay.
Merle Pratt.
Nanette.
Misaki.
Do you want this list back to have this data?
Yes, if that's.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll collect. Thank you. Thank you. Are we on? Why does it, why does it keep dying on us? I'm not sure.
You think you keep hitting the button?
I
Is it
think,
flashing?
yes, it's flashing.
It shouldn't be flashing, it should be solid.
Okay, it's back on. Okay. Okay, everyone that got out of pattern will expect to see an entry in the quilt show. And those of you who didn't get a free pattern, there are many still left to purchase here. Are we good? On to the door prizes. I think we need to give that one. Okay, there's one more. Do we still have our basket?
Yes.
Oh, careful, because we've been putting some
I
back.
forgot the sample one.
You can't have 2.
Yeah. This is Elise Frederick. Okay. Now we are on to our door prizes. First off, we have this snap sack with some lovely fall fabric and the Fons and Porter 1/4-inch seam markers.
Dig deep on that one. Okay.
476-718. 718. Hey, mine's over there by my
Oh, I can't, no.
No, she put it in her-
We'll put it in one of the other ones. Oh, 718's over here. Yes. And next, we have some more lovely fall fabric for a waffle time from Atkinson's, but we have an Annie's 2 pattern to go with it. And our winner is 713. And next we have a Fons and Porter rotary cutter and a cutesy little Alpha cutting mat. It is mini mat. 738. 738, going once, going twice. I'm sorry. Okay, we're gonna try again.
Check all buttons.
I did.
757. Oh, yes, and finally, we have strip samplers for jelly rolls, and we do know National Jelly Roll Day is coming up September 16th or something, next Saturday. So perfectly appropriate for this week, and then we also have a collection of glitter and thread. And that is 730. Oh, there we go. And Zoomers, what number did we pick for our Zoomers?
Did we get someone's name?
We have a name, we have a name.
It's right here.
It's right here.
Sally.
Sally Alden. Are you there, Sally? Please put your name and address and email in the chat, please. And the quilt shop you would like your $25 gift certificate to. Is Sally still online? Give her a minute, but she's still a participant.
Hang on, message to, nope, we go from Nancy to Sandra on the alpha list of who's.
Okay, better roll the dice then.
How many?
I'll pick a number. How about?
Number from 4 to 15.
7. Who's number 7? Trish Timms. If you're still there on Zoom, put your name and the quilt shop you'd like a $25.
I'm here.
Oh, good. Then put it on chat with your name, address, gift certificate, email.
We have her address and everything. We just need the store she wants. Close us
We
out.
just need the store you want your $25 gift certificate to. And I think we're done. Thank you to all our presenters, and thank you so much to everyone who came to Schoolhouse. We had a great turnout. It's good to see a full house.
Thank you for all the yummy baked treats.
Oh, yes, and thank everyone who brought baked treats and the folks who volunteered to do hospitality.
Karen made coffee.
And Karen made coffee, and just everybody. Glad to see everyone. We'll be back here again in October on the first Saturday.
All right.